Did you know that in 2024, there are a lot of small text things that you can put into your podcast data that will help you get found? What? We're going to talk about it today. I have an entire list of things that will help you get found by the listeners that you desperately want to listen to your podcast. And I want them to find you. So here we go. Hi, I'm Steph from Coffee Like Media, and I am passionately committed to you finding your people. For whatever podcast goal you have, I want you to get connected. Thus the name of this podcast, Podcast to Connect. All right. So let's dive into this because I think these are really important. And yet I do them so routinely for my podcast management clients that I barely think about them. But I just watched a video where somebody outlined a few of these and I thought, oh gosh, yeah, we don't talk about this enough. We do not talk about this enough. I've had clients who do very little outreach, very little marketing for their podcast, and they still grow. And I have a feeling part of that is because we implement these things. And so they're there for when people are searching for the keywords that we're putting in there. They get found. Now, I'm not talking about SEO, but I might be talking about SEO. I'm not an SEO expert. People, I am a podcast expert. And all I know is that including this metadata, and don't run. It's just a word. It just means the tiny data that's in our podcast stuff. For example, number 1, the episode title. I talked about this in the previous episode. Your episode title needs to have front-loaded keywords. But also, if you don't, on some places like Google, if you have the keyword in the episode title at all, that could possibly help you get found. Yeah, so having it in the title is step 1. Having it in the title early on is step 2, like I said in the previous episode, because that will help people when they're just scanning your episodes. They'll see the content keyword earlier. Number 2 is in your show notes. This is really important, folks. In the first or second sentence of your show notes, you need to have the keywords. You no longer need to have, I don't know. It used to be a lot more rigid, but the way things are being scanned, it feels a little more flexible. However, it still needs to be early and it needs to be clear. The first sentence or 2 of your show notes is not the place to get creative. It's the place to plant the words where if people are asking questions about something that's in the main idea that's in that episode of yours, they need the keywords that would be the answer to be in those first 2 sentences. Now, don't just write 2 words at the beginning of your show notes. Have it within the sentence. Please, let's not be silly. Let's be productive. You need the keywords early and often. Now, that just seems like good writing, is you're going to tell people what it's about, and then you're going to go into a little more detail. Give them the overview first, have those keywords in there. So that's 2, episode title and show notes. You need the keywords in there. Transcripts. Please, there are so many great AI transcripts. And if you do nothing else than run the transcripts and run the spell check, that's still better than nothing. It's not great, but it's better than nothing. Sometimes if I'm in a rush, I'll do the AI transcripts, which are free. Let me know if you want the one that I use. I'll put it in I'll answer you with the link. I run it, I do a spell check, and I search for words that I know it gets wrong. It constantly gets my last name wrong. Fuccio is not a common last name, apparently, even though in Italy it's super common. But yeah, anyway, so there's that. I search for Coffee Like Media, which it always splits into 3 words. Coffee Like Media. It's not. It's 2 words. Coffee Like Media. And when I'm doing my ChatGPT episodes for my other podcast, I will search for chat and correct all of the interesting ways that it thinks I'm saying ChatGPT. At minimum, I do that. Ideally, I'll read through the whole thing and make sure it makes sense. Punctuation is not always great, but look, get some form of transcripts, preferably an edited version, on there. It's not just for accessibility, although that is a huge, huge reason to have it up there. When you have your podcast available in multiple forms, you have more people that can access it. Not everybody can or wants to do audio. A lot of people like to read as opposed to listen. Some people can't listen. So have the transcripts there. But transcripts are also scanned for keywords. So there's a reason. If you need one, as in addition to everything else I've said, they are used for search these days. Tags. Now this I need to show you. So let me start showing you where I put this stuff, because you're probably like, well, what? Okay, so far the episode titles. Here we go. This is my Hindenburg. This is the DAW that I edit in. So far I talked about episode titles and show notes. You know where to put those. You put those into your podcast host. This is where I edit. You might use Audacity, you might use Adobe Audition, what have you. But I bet you in your DAW, there is a place for properties. And this is for podcast. You see up here, it's like general MP3, MP4. This is for podcast. And it has episode, subtitle, podcast, episode number, keywords. I try to fill in as much of this as possible. I personally don't fill in the summary because I find that it just works better for me if I do the summary within the podcast host as opposed to in here. It kind of fights each other if I do it in here. However, the podcast title, the name of the podcast, the episode number, a few tags, and the image. The image, when you do it like this and you attach it to the audio file, when people are listening in their car or on any device that they can see an image, it comes up like that. If you're old like me, you might remember the old car stereos where it would show like the screen cover of the album. That's the same with the podcast logos. So put your logo in there. That'll set you aside from the episodes or the podcasts that don't put their logo in there. And let's face it, an image is always more appealing than just a blank space on a screen, right? And I have some other information in here that is probably for another time, but I wanted to show you your DAW may be one place where you can put some of this information. Another place that you can put some of this information that I will share with you is in your podcast host. And I use Buzzsprout for most of my podcasts. So I will show you that right now. Okay, so here is Buzzsprout. And if I go to edit on this one, AI and podcasting is another episode or another podcast that I do. So now am I in edit yet? There we go. So I'm in edit. So you can see this again, the episode title, the description. This one, I do have a keyword within the first 2 sentences. ChatGPT is definitely that. I could probably put another keyword in there that would be stronger. Although analytics is in there, and that is what the episode is about. So actually, I take it back. This is pretty good. I've got 2 major keywords in there that I think will help. Now, the thing that a lot of people forget to do is to go down to these tags and put in the tags. Keywords, they're the same. I mean, they have different functions, but they are essentially the same words that you would use. I had some in my file before, but I'm adding some more in here because now I've re-listened to it again. And so I'm putting some more. Also, if you have a guest, you can put them here. Blah, 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 blah. And then when people search for that person, they will see that episode will come up. I don't have a guest in this one. It's just me, so I put my name in there. So that's where you can put tags. You can also put tags in places like if you do any sound cleanup on any tools like Auphonic or Adobe Podcast. I don't know if Adobe Podcast AI does this yet. I imagine they do, but I don't know. But I know that Auphonic does. You can clean up some of your audio 2 hours free per month. No sponsorship. I just really like this service. And if you see down here, it says extended metadata. Again, metadata is just the stuff, the text that is attached to your audio. So you can do subtitle, genre, year. I don't know that I do much of that, but tags I would definitely do. Maybe you want to put your licensing in here if your podcast host doesn't have a section for that, or your DAW doesn't have a section for that. And tags definitely down here. So there's a few different places where you can put your metadata. Again, just the information. Like, do you remember like when you search for a book, in a library or a bookstore. There's the book title, the author name, there's an ISBN number, which is this when you scan the book, it's basically the product number. These are metadata, just like with your podcast. The more metadata you attached to your audio, the more people can find your podcast. If they're looking for the keywords that you've listed, if they're looking for the guests that you've listed, if they're looking for you, your name is in there. There's all of these little bits of information that could help you come up in searches in different places. The final one is one that is the most often forgotten. It is the file name. If you have some funky file name system, like if it's season 10, episode 20, it's like S10E20, and that's all you do, you're missing out on some metadata. Just, if nothing else, include the episode name, because your episode title, episode name, same thing, that should have some keywords in it. So you can still do the S10E20 if you want to. I certainly do, to keep track of stuff. And then put the title, because the title alone will have the keywords. Do you put more than that? I don't know. I've never actually tried that. Maybe that would be a fun experiment. Maybe. I'm doing fine with the system that I have, so I'm not really going to play with that. But if you do, let me know. So file name. So add more than just the episode number to your file name, and that will be another piece of metadata, boom, boom, to attach to your audio. So there you have it. Your episode title, and yes, this is my notes. My episode title, your episode title, show notes, transcripts, tags, and file name. Those are 5 places you can put keywords and information when people are searching for a specific topic in a specific episode of a podcast, or even now on Google, podcasts are coming up in search. So, attach keywords and be found more. It's really that simple. The more places you put information, the more you will be found. Even if you are not producing any new episodes, even if you're on a break, which are probably the same thing, even if you're taking the week off of social media or what have you, if you have the stuff embedded in your audio, you can be found when people are looking for that type of episode. I just had some real fun with ChatGPT and massaging the questions I was asking, the prompt training I was doing with the transcript of a podcast episode to get a summary of the episode, possible episode notes, and a really good title that I'm super happy with. And it's not how you're thinking. So let's take a look and see how I did this. Okay, so I started out as you would with the transcript here. And I said, hey, please leave the main sections of the text, no details, just heading. I do this kind of prompt because I don't like to tell it it's a podcast episode, because then it gets into like 1980s television, like infomercial BS. And I don't like how it does that. If I say this is a podcast episode, write the podcast summary, or the podcast episode summary, then what ends up happening inevitably is that it's this horrible, like, hey, let's dive into this thing, and and it's just the most awful writing known to man, the most awful writing. So I don't do that. What I do instead is I dig into like having it take the text, the transcription, and list out the details. And then let me show you how I walk it through that. This isn't even the best part yet. This is stuff I've been doing for a while and that I've showed you before. But so I have it list out the sections. And now what I'm looking for is the heart of the episode. Not just, because just like the episode itself is not just a summary, it has a thread, it has a storyline. There's the heart of it. And so I'm trying to get to the heart of what is the main part. Because in this list, all of these points look like they're equal, but we all know that the introduction is not equal to the rest of the bits, right? Okay. Oh, that works. Let's do that. So we know that they're not all equal. The introduction is quite small. The number 10, the conclusion is quite small, and there's the heart of it does not come out. So now let's get to the heart of the episode. So I said, if you had to summarize the main point of the text in it should be in one sentence, but I said in what sentence? What would it be? It said the main point of the text is that small business owners must actively engage with accurate bookkeeping to avoid costly errors, as demonstrated by a recent client case where inadequate bookkeeping practices by an accounting firm led to significant financial issues that could require substantial corrections. It's quite a mouthful, but it is the heart of the episode. That is correct. I just listened and edited the episode, and I can affirm, yes, that is accurate. So then I'm looking for a title. Specifically right now, I'm at the point of the production phase where I need a title so I can render the audio file and do the rest of the stuff, because you really want to put metadata into your audio file. And it says, so I said title less than 5 words, no punctuation, because I hate that it does those academic titles with 3 or 4 words, colon, semicolon, I always forget which is which, and the other one, I think it's colon. Anyway, so it says the importance of accurate bookkeeping. Blah, crap. The first one is always terrible. So I said, give me 5 options. 5 options. Essential bookkeeping practices, 1. 2. Accurate bookkeeping matters, 3. Bookkeeping for business success, 4. Fixing bookkeeping mistakes, and 5. Small business bookkeeping essentials. None of that really has the heart of the frustration and the annoyance of bookkeeping being done incorrectly. So then I said, one of the titles I was kind of writing on my notes to the side while I was editing, I said, how about when things go wrong? And I didn't even say how about, because I don't need to, because you just throw out ideas and Chatty replies. So I said, when things go wrong. And here are 5 more titles that it gave me that are so much better. When bookkeeping goes wrong. Number 2, fixing financial errors. Number 3, recovering from bookkeeping mistakes. Number 4, correcting accounting missteps. And number 5, troubleshooting bookkeeping issues. And then I said, is the main problem he discusses in the bookkeeping error, or the bookkeeping, is the main problem he discussed in the bookkeeping in the episode, I made a mistake again, the bookkeeping error, the bookkeeper protecting themselves, or something else? Because I still don't think that they're better, the titles are better, but it still doesn't get to the heart of the episode. And then, Chatty, I'm not going to read this whole paragraph. You can read it here if you want to pause. Basically says it's about the incorrect bookkeeping that is allowed to happen, that the owner allows to happen. And so I said, okay, how do we summarize that into a 5-word title? And it said, engaging in accurate bookkeeping matters. Factually true, still doesn't have the heart of the episode. So I said, engaging? And it said, yeah, engaging's not good. So here are the 5 that come after it. Active involvement in bookkeeping matters. Owners must ensure accurate bookkeeping. Oversight of blah, blah, blah. It's 5 more that are better, but we're still not there yet. So I said, what would business owners search for to find this info? Because here's the thing. You want the episode to be an answer to a question that somebody's Googling or somebody's searching in their podcast app. You want it to be, especially in practical business podcast episodes like this one, you want it to be a search answer. Even if it's not an answer as the title, you want it to answer something that somebody's looking for, in this case, business owners. And it came up with 10. I'll just leave them on the screen if you want to pause and take a look at them. But these are much closer to what we need. It has the heart of most of these have the heart of the message, and they sound like answers to a business owner's search when when there's a problem with their bookkeeping, right? So I actually landed on, can you guess? Wait, before I give you the answer, can you guess the number down below? Quick pause and write the number of the one you think I did. And while you're doing that, I'm going to screenshot it and put it down below so that when people look at the comments, they can see which ones everybody thought. Okay, so I'm going to tell you my answer. It was signs of bad bookkeeping. Because I think if somebody's having a problem with their bookkeeping and they go searching in YouTube, which is, this podcast is also in YouTube, as well as, and by the way, the name of the podcast is the Not Boring Small Business Bookkeeping and Accounting Podcast. And yes, Paul has given me permission to share the behind the scenes stuff like this working on his episode. Thank you, Paul, for that. Okay, so signs of bad bookkeeping.
because it has the heart of the problem. If a business owner is having a problem with their books, maybe they're being audited by the IRS or something like that, or they've lost their bookkeeper and they can't quite figure out what's happening, or like Paul mentioned, maybe their accounting firm is doing their bookkeeping and there's something going wrong there that they noticed. All of those things, there's probably going to be bad bookkeeping or problem with bookkeeping or something like that. So that's why I leaned in that way. And signs of bad bookkeeping leans towards what I think Paul is giving in this episode, which are things that you could notice that could lead you to believe, I need to do this better. We need to do this better. I need to keep an eye on this better. And Paul definitely stresses that the business owners need to have more of a hands off, as he said in the notes that I wrote, they need to be part of the process. There's far too much, here you do this and I'll never check it kind of stuff happening. So I think signs of bad bookkeeping is probably the one that I will go with for this, at least while I render the audio file. But I think that's one I'm looking at them again. See, they're all good in different ways, but I think that has mostly the heart of the episode there. So the reason why I wanted to walk you through this is that I went from having it outline the main points of the episode, and then trying to come to the main point. And then, of course, I already listen to the episode. So be familiar with the episode. Don't just throw an episode in and take whatever Chatty gives you, because it's not human. It's not going to do that. You have to fact check everything. You have to make sure that it does it well. You are responsible. Consider it an intern. You are overseeing it. So I got the main information and it wasn't quite right. Then I tried to get some titles out of it. Not quite right. I kept asking questions, kept throwing out ideas from my own notes, and then we honed in on it. And then I went between two ideas. Is it this or is it this? And then we got more details. We got more another title. And then I questioned some of the vocabulary, and then we got closer. And then I asked it more and we got closer. So it's still a lot of prompt chaining. And yes, I understand that doing something like this probably took me about half an hour for one single title. But again, when people are searching for things, what they find should be your episode. And to find that, part of that is going to be the metadata that not only goes into the title in podcast apps, but the title in when people listen in cars and when they listen on YouTube Living Room. That metadata is important enough to spend a half hour or an hour on. So you really want to hone in on that and make sure that not only it answers a question that somebody's asking, but that it is searchable and that it matches. Because if it doesn't match, not only will they not come back and listen to other things, but they won't listen the whole way through. It'll mess up the algorithm, or they'll never recommend it. I mean, there's so many repercussions for misrepresenting, using titles or keywords that are trending or that are SEO important, but that don't match what you're actually putting out into the world. So you want to be accurate, and you want to be representative, and you want to answer things that people are saying.